My name is Andrew McWilliams, and I'm an artist and a technologist, and I want to talk to you today about ThoughtWorks Arts, which is a program that I co-created and run along with many amazing people here at ThoughtWorks. But first, I want to begin with an example to help illustrate why it is that we do what we do. This is the artist Neil Harbison, and Neil is a cyborg because he has an antenna surgically implanted in the back of his skull. Neil was born with a severe form of color blindness called achromatopsia, which means that he can't perceive color. So in response to this, many years ago, Neil worked with technologists and medical professionals to create this antenna as a surgical implant. There's a webcam at the front of the antenna, and that translates color into audio frequencies, which Neil can hear through bone conduction. So in some sense, Neil can hear color. Now, I want to dig in for a second and look at the way that Neil describes this project, because I think it's really going to help me to illustrate one of my key points today. Neil says that there are two main components to this implant. There's the technology component, which is the antenna, which you can think of as a custom-designed sensory organ. But there's also the psychological component, because this sensory organ is permanent. It cannot be switched off. And this is deliberate. It means that Neil's brain patterns over time have adapted to this constant incoming data stream. And that makes this the first-class sense alongside sight, smell, and so on. So Neil's experience, his sense of the world, is qualitatively different to anyone else on the planet because he's the only one that has this sense. He even dreams in sound colors. So you might think of it as a replacement for a missing sensory component of color vision, but that's not how Neil thinks of it. Neil thinks of it as an art project. And it's an art project which tells him something about the future of society. And it's a future in which people design and customize their own new senses. And it's not just that it tells him about the future, it also gives him first-hand experience of that future, what it's really like. He actually lives it. Well, that's something that we're really interested in at ThoughtWorks, this approach, this art practice as emerging technology research. And that's why we created ThoughtWorks Arts. So let's back up for a second here. What is ThoughtWorks? ThoughtWorks is a 6,000 employee global tech consultancy with offices across Europe, North and South America, Asia, Australia, and right here in San Francisco. We're working on commercial projects across many different sectors. And as a company, there are two main clusters of focus areas that ThoughtWorks is really concerned in, and that's tech and social impact. Well, if these are your key concerns, then you have a problem, because tech and society change really quickly. They're multifaceted, they're intertwined, they're codependent, so it's complicated. And it's incredibly difficult to look forward and accurately predict what the many impacts are going to be. So working with artists is part of us looking forward, building pictures of what's coming. And also, like Neil, it's a way for us to gain lived experience, working hands-on with artists, crafting prototypes, helping to generate and understand these potential futures. So to do this, we run a range of programs around the world. Each is designed to engage different artists and different audiences in different ways. And we work with an array of partners to connect our expertise to a wider network of researchers, thinkers, makers, and so on. And it's on that basis that we work with Neil on a 16-week funded, fully supported residency where we helped Neil to develop a brand new sensory organ, a wearable time sense that allows him to feel the passage of time as pulses around the circumference of his head. Now, this prototype helped Neil to train his personal experience of time and to modify his circadian rhythm. That's one project. Here's another. This is the artist and filmmaker Karen Palmer, and she's pointing to emotion values as determined by an AI system written by ThoughtWorks. The system is called EmoPie, and it analyzes video feeds of webcam footage and predicts the emotions that the person is feeling. EmoPie is open source, and anyone can contribute to it, and that's really important because, like it or not, these types of AI systems are being built and designed by big tech giants using private data sets and architectures, and it's hidden from public view, and it's proprietary. So the accuracy and the biases and the, everything else about these systems is kind of unknown. Open source projects like EmoPi allow us to expose these features and understand and investigate how the tech works publicly, and to make free community-driven alternatives. Karen, the artist, used EmoPi in this video art installation, which positions viewers in a riot. And it's a tense experience. She actually has a riot cop control audience members and ask you if you're carrying a weapon and usher you in. And that heightens the tension. And then the film watches you back, and it monitors your emotions. And the film has different outcomes depending on its perception of your emotions as a viewer. So after showing Riot as part of a special exhibition for ThoughtWorks Arts artists at Spring Break for Armory Week, Karen has now worked with ThoughtWorks again over the summer to develop this new experience called Perception.io, and it's currently on display at the Cooper Hewitt Museum in New York. The new system connects EmoPi with state-of-the-art gaze tracking technology to help participants to become aware of personal subconscious behaviors, implicit biases, and to learn about the biases of AI networks in relationship. So at this point, we've incubated a really large number of projects, really amazing projects, and I don't have time today to dig into all of them, but I want to give you a sense. So I'm going to give you a truncated highlight reel of a few more. Some of you may know Heather Dewey-Hagborg, who produces faces from discarded bits of DNA. She picks up chewing gum and hairs, and she samples the DNA and generates these masks. And it's a complex process. You know, the traits from the DNA are translated into the features you see on these faces. And it touches on an array of intricate, important, problematic areas. So we supported Heather to try and tell this story. She worked with one of our designers in India and with Chelsea Manning to produce this hand-inked comic to make it easier to explain these themes of data and identity, genetic privacy, and so on. Here's another project in which we were exploring brain-computer interface and how it relates to human empathy. This is by Erin Tricola and Eva Lee. And it visualizes brain patterns during and after human touch. And that's a custom-designed, 3D-printed, open-source brain-computer interface by Erin Tricola that they're wearing. And here's one more. This is a 360 film and VR experience working with the United Nations storyteller and Fulbright specialist Lisa Russell, exploring potential futures of the climate crisis. Oh, and of course, Katie who just spoke. So we worked on a project exploring the application of choreography to human-robot interaction. So she's already spoken. I won't say too much more, but I'll just note that this particular robot, is owned by the Consortium for Research in Robotics in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, who we worked with for this residency. And so that speaks to the power of partnerships and doing this out in the open, doing this publicly with friends and partners, in terms of supporting strong creative ecosystems to explore these issues and to support artists. So hopefully those projects just give you a flavor of what that looks like, some of the high-impact projects. And to wrap up, I want to tell you about a couple more projects that we've got in the works right now. In New York, we recently incubated the artist Rasheen Fahandej, whose work raises the voices of incarcerated men and women in these deeply emotional portraits of fathers singing lullabies to their children who they were not able to be with during their youth. Rasheen has been looking for new ways for these fathers to express their emotions, and so she's using volumetric filmmaking here for storytelling and really doing some amazing work here. So to support Rasheen, we actually partnered with the Emmy Award-winning studio Scatter, who are really leading the way on the development of this tech. Our next project begins here in San Francisco. In 1 week's time, we're starting a residency on the democratization of AI via blockchain, and that's in partnership with the Singularity Net Foundation, run by Dr. Ben Getzel. We're working with 3 artists on a project called All Possible Pathways, and we're exploring the nature of AI as it relates to blockchain, and specifically they'll be working on distributed narratives. And it's a science fiction work on AI's future, meaning different authors will contribute independently from different cities throughout the writing process. The narrative of the story will be developed piece by piece on a public blockchain ledger, locking in the story as it goes. And as always, we want to work with collaborators and partners. So if this interests you, let's talk about that. Here's my final thought. Artists are experts at exploring and crafting and communicating windows onto worldviews. And artists working with technologists can regularly imagine, research, communicate, and even generate new futures, and also to engage critically on issues about today. So if that interests you, let's talk in person, or you can contact me via these channels. Thank you.